जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद् हिस्ट्री डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी व्यक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासवती गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा मय यमुना मय की भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की समवेत भक्त वृंद की गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Jagat Guru Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter 26, verse number 60. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātāṁ. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātāṁ. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātāṁ. samudras-tva etayor abhūt. samudras-tva etayor abhūt. athāsya hṛdayam bhinnam. athāsya hṛdayam bhinnam. hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam. hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātām. samudras-tva etayor abhūt. athāsya hṛdayam bhinnam. hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātām. samudras-tva etayor abhūt. athāsya hṛdayam bhinnam. hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam. Mataji. Pipāse tataḥ syātām. samudras-tva etayor abhūt. athasya hṛdayam bhinnam. hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam. kṣut-pipāse tataḥ syātāṁ samudras etayor abhūt athāsya hṛdayam bhinnam hṛdayān manaḥ utthitam kṣut-pipāse, hunger and thirst. Tataḥ, then syātām appeared. Samudraḥ, the ocean. Tu, then etayor, in their wake. Abhūt, appeared. Atha, then asya, of the universal form. hṛdayam, a heart. Bhinnam, appeared. hṛdayāt, from the heart. Manaḥ, the mind. Utthitam, appeared. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation: next grew feelings of hunger and thirst, and their wake came the manifestation of the oceans. Then a heart became manifest, and in the wake of the heart, the mind appeared. We can read the translation together. Next grew feelings of hunger and thirst, and in their wake came the manifestation of the oceans. Then a heart became manifest, and in the wake of the heart, the mind appeared. Purport: the ocean is considered to be the presiding deity of the abdomen, where the feelings of hunger and thirst originate. When there is an irregularity in hunger and thirst, one is advised, according to Āyur-vedic treatment, to take a bath in the ocean. Thus ends the purport. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānāñjana-śalakaya chakṣur-unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta-padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrujatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shri Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome all for today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So in this current verse number 60, here it describes about how there is feelings of hunger and thirst in the abdomen, and how the oceans became manifest, and how the abdomen and oceans are connected to the Virat Purusha. And in their awake, how the heart and mind appeared. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how is, how in the Āyur-vedic treatment, if one is having some irregularities in hunger and thirst, one is advised to take bath in the ocean, correct? So in this verse and in the previous verses also, we have seen this reference to Ayurveda, correct? So currently, actually, we are reading about Sankhya philosophy, but in the meantime, we also hear or see the references to Ayurveda. So now the obvious question is, what is the relationship between Ayurveda and Sankhya, and how are they related? Because they seem to be like two different topics, right? But looks like there is some connection. That is why Prabhupada is talking about Ayurveda while discussing about Sankhya. Well, if anyone have studied Ayurveda, actually Ayurveda uses a lot of principles of Sankhya philosophy in treatment of the body. So in that way, Ayurveda and Sankhya, they are actually very much related to each other. And, yeah. So Sankhya, yeah. Okay. So the Sankhya philosophy is like, it's like mathematics, right? And mathematics, it's its own subject. But at the same time, we also see mathematics used in physics and chemistry, right? Even though mathematics is its own subject, but at the same time, mathematics is also used in physics and chemistry and other subject matters, correct? So same way, Sankhya is its own subject. But at the same time, Sankhya, the principles of Sankhya is used in other branches of knowledge, like Ayurveda. It is something like that. And so this Sankhya principles appears not only in Ayurveda, but many other branches of Vedic knowledge also. Like Ayurveda is one example, and we also see the reference to Sankhya in Ashtanga Yoga also. And in Bhakti Yoga also we see some principles of Sankhya, like in Bhagavad Gita, there is a lot of reference to Sankhya philosophy. So in this way, actually the Sankhya philosophy is kind of spread everywhere. Its presence, you can see it everywhere. In many Vedic branches of knowledge, you can see Sankhya. So similarly, in Ayurveda also, we see the principles of Sankhya. And here specifically, we are talking about Ayurveda and diseases. I thought I will just talk a little bit about these diseases, because Prabhupada is talking about diseases here. So according to Ayurveda, all the diseases can be classified into two categories, sadhya and asadhya. Means there are diseases which you can cure, and there are some diseases which we cannot cure. They are called curable diseases and incurable diseases. And in the curable diseases also, we have two categories. Those which are like easily curable, and those which are kind of difficult to cure, right? So for example, you have like a fever, right? It's easy to cure. You just like, you take a medicine, or even if you don't take a medicine, in just couple of days, you will automatically recover. It's an easily curable disease. And there are some diseases which can be cured, but it's a little bit difficult to cure. Like, stage 2 diabetes, right? Like a diabetes. You can cure the diabetes, but it's a little bit difficult to cure. But still, it is curable. And there are some diseases which are like difficult to cure. And so those diseases are like, you can control some diseases, like from getting worse. Or some diseases you cannot even control. Like, say, for example, cancer. Cancer is, sometimes people say you can cure it, or even if you cure it, it's not like, you cannot like 100% remove it. You can maybe just control it from getting worse, something like that, right? So cancer is like some kind of like an incurable disease, but you can control the symptoms to some extent, not 100%, I guess. And there are some diseases which are like completely incurable. You can neither control them nor cure them, like polio or some birth defects. Like, let's say a person is born with a birth defects. Yeah, like someone is born blind, right? You cannot do anything. You can neither control it nor cure it. So on all these diseases, I mean, this is how we kind of classify all the diseases in Ayurveda, and the treatment is according to that, or not every disease is having the same treatment, right? According to which category of this disease, the treatment also accordingly, And all these diseases actually happens because of some karma, right? Some sinful activities or, previous life karma. So this karma also, there is karma, and some karma is like, due to kriyamana karma, means those activities we have done in this lifetime. Let's say you eat too much sugar, or you eat too many sweets, right? You're going to get diabetes in this life itself, right? So, or you eat some stale food, you're going to get fever or some infection, right? So that's a karma. It's a reaction to your activities. And those activities are something which you performed in this lifetime. And all the curable diseases mostly come in that category. And there are some diseases which are difficult to cure, and you have not done anything in your life, this life, but it just happened to you, right? So that is because of prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is basically those activities you have performed in your previous life. And now we are kind of suffering the result of those activities. So that is why it kind of comes in the category of incurable diseases. And now coming to the connection between these gross elements and different parts of the body. Well, in the previous verses we have seen how the 24 elements are manifested, and all these 24 elements are somehow they're connected with one of the gross elements. Like, the space is connected to ears, air is connected to skin, something like that, right? So in this way, these gross elements and these sense organs are having some connection. That is why in Ayurveda, while treating any sense organs, it is connected to these gross elements also. Like, for example, you have problem with your, digestion or thirst, then you take bath in the ocean. Ocean is water, right? It's one of the gross elements. So in this way, these gross elements and sense organs are having some connection, and that is the foundation for the Ayurvedic treatment, because Ayurveda, it takes these principles of Sankhya, how each element is formed and how each element is connected to one of your sense organs, and by using that gross element, you can develop a medicine. And this medicine also is different for different diseases and different for different people. The people with same disease, two different people have a same different treatment because of what category or what severity of the disease one has in. So in this way, we can just see some like a glimpse of the connection between Ayurveda and Sankhya. But of course, we should not take this like all in all, right? Because Prabhupada just kind of mentions like briefly about this connection, but we cannot just take this as like a full treatment and start treating ourselves, right? It's just because there is much more to treatment than just some high level discussion about how the connection between the gross and the gross elements and sense organs. So now coming to just kind of looking at the bigger picture of what's happening in this section of Bhagavatam. The previous verses, verse number 32 to 49, over there we have discussed the manifestation or the creation of 24 elements. And from verse number 54 to 61, here we are kind of discussing about the Virat Purusha, right? Virat Purusha's creation. Well, if you see the other Sankhya philosophies, like atheistic Sankhya philosophy, there is similarity. Over there also, they discuss about these 24 elements, how it is created, and it is same. It is similar to what Bhagavatam also speaks about. But you don't really see the description of Virat Purusha over there. I mean, they just say that 24 elements are created, and you have all these 24 elements, so the creation is happening. You don't really see the description of Virat Purusha. This description of Virat Purusha, you only find it in Bhagavatam. You don't see it in any other Sankhya philosophies. There is a reason why they don't discuss it. I'll just explain a little bit. Because most of the creation of elements is already discussed. So if someone can ask a question that why has to be one more description of Virat Purusha, right? Sometimes you can even if you omit it, you can still kind of make sense, right? How the creation happened. No, but Bhagavatam lays a lot of emphasis on Virat Purusha and its description. So if you read the previous verses, verse number 32 to 49, it discusses about the 24 elements, but there is not too much mention about the role of Purusha, or not too much mention about role of God. It just shows that, okay, one element is coming from other element, it's just kind of happening automatically, something like that. So there is not too much discussion about the Purusha or the role of God. The only reference you find is, in the beginning, you will see, how Prakriti is disturbed by Purusha. That's one reference to Purusha. And the second reference to Purusha, we will find it in the 41st verse, where it says, Daiva Choditaha, means under superior arrangements. So those are the only two places where we see some reference to Purusha. But most of the things looks like it's kind of happening automatically. But when it comes to Virat Purusha's description, we will see here the involvement of Purusha much more, in depth, like much more intricate, like, at every step, like, the Lord, there's a connection with the Lord, like, there's a lot connection with the Lord's eyes, Lord's nose, Lord's abdomen, like, there's much more, connection over here. And which is kind of not emphasized so much in the atheistic Sankhya philosophy. Because if you look at the understanding of the atheistic Sankhya philosophy, their understanding of Purusha is very, very different from the how Bhagavatam describes about the Purusha, So, this is just some of the points. The way Purusha, see, even though we say atheistic Sankhya philosophy, that doesn't mean that they deny God. That's not the thing. I mean, they accept there is God, they accept there is Purusha, but they kind of undermine the role of Purusha, or they kind of undermine the role of God. That's how, that's how it kind of sounds like an atheistic philosophy. Because in atheistic Sankhya philosophy, their understanding is that, see, Purusha is there, right? I mean, Purusha is required, but Purusha is not directly involved in the creation. I mean, I'll give an example how they kind of justify this understanding. And they say that creation happens by influence of Purusha, but Purusha is not directly involved in creation. That's how atheistic Sankhya philosophers describe. But on the other hand, the theistic Sankhya in the Bhagavatam, no, it disagrees with this understanding. It says that no, it's nothing like that. The Purusha is directly involved in the creation, and Purusha is actually involved in each and every step of creation. And that becomes very obvious when we are reading these verses, especially the Virat Purusha's description, where you see the Lord is involved in each and every step. You see that? So over there you can see much more prominence to the role of Purusha or God in the process of creation. Because, I mean, we say this atheistic Sankhya, right? So what is this atheistic Sankhya philosophy? See, this atheistic Sankhya philosophy is coming from a book called as Sankhya Karika. The commentary is given by Ishvara Krishna. And the author is Kapila, but again, this Kapila is different Kapila, right? It is, he is the one who is belonging to Agni dynasty. He is not the, the son of Devahuti. And the commentator is Ishvara Krishna. And actually this book was lost, but this book was actually copied into Chinese language because the Chinese doctors, when they came to India, they took this Sankhya philosophy. That's how they developed the Chinese medicine. But when the book is lost in India, this Sankhya philosophy was brought back into India from China. So it was a translation back from China to Indian language, right? So that's how this atheistic Sankhya philosophy is currently existing in the form of Sankhya Karika. And most of the arguments given in the Sankhya Karika is actually refuted by Vyasa in Brahma Sutras. And as I mentioned before, the Purusha and how this Purusha is understood in atheistic Sankhya and how the Purusha is understood in Bhagavatam, to give some examples, like one example what atheistic Sankhya philosophy says is that there are many examples. I thought I just picked up these 3 examples and to give how they understand it and how Bhagavatam refutes these understandings. Like for example, let's say you have an iron and a magnet, right? So you put like iron close to the magnet, what happens? These iron particles, either you can manipulate the iron particles or it comes and sticks to the magnet, right? Now the question is, does this iron know that what is its influence or what it is doing on iron particles? It doesn't know. I mean, you just put anything, it just automatically, iron particles get influenced by magnet. Magnet doesn't know what it is doing, right? So similarly, the Prakriti is happening because of Purusha, but Purusha doesn't need to know everything that's happening in Prakriti. This is how Purusha is required, but Purusha is not directly involved in the creation. This is how they understand. Or the other example is that when you turn milk into yogurt, right? That's how Pradhana, when it's transforming into various elements. See, it is happening naturally, right? Is someone sitting inside the milk and trying to... No. You just add some yogurt in the milk, it automatically turns into yogurt, right? There's no need for someone to manipulate the milk. It's happening naturally, automatically. Or let's say some cow is grazing the grass, right? So the grass is transforming into milk. Is someone sitting inside the cow's stomach and transforming the grass into milk? No. It is naturally, automatically happening. So similarly, these things are happening naturally, automatically. There is no need for God to be involved so much in trying to do everything, right? That is how the atheistic Sankhya philosophy explains these things. But this understanding is very wrong understanding, and actually Vyasadeva, he refutes these atheistic understandings in Brahma Sutras. Some of the arguments Vyasadeva puts is that, okay, now we are saying that iron and magnet, a magnet is not aware of what's happening to the iron around it, right? But see, someone has to bring the magnet and iron close to each other, right? It doesn't automatically come, right? So, like example, like sun is there, planets are there. See, planets are going around the sun, right? But someone has to put the planet in that position, right? For it to, revolve around the sun. Let's say the planet is too close or too far, right? It's either too cold or too hot. And there is no question of, living entity surviving in such atmosphere. So, yeah, it's all right, but someone has to keep that position. So that means that there is a role of God in the creation. It doesn't happen naturally, you see. That's one refutation Vyasadeva gives for this iron and magnet example. And the other thing is milk turning into yogurt. Okay, see, milk is turning into yogurt, but there is there is a conscious controller behind it. See, just because you don't see someone controlling it, that doesn't mean that there's nobody controller there. See, you may not see it with your eyes, but there is a conscious controller who's kind of transforming the milk into yogurt. Or the cow grazing the grass and giving milk. Okay, now you give the grass to the bull. Will bull give the milk? No, you don't get milk from the bull. The milk is coming only from the cow, right? So what it means is that a specific effect is produced by a specific cause, right? So that means that there is a will of Lord. Things are not happening automatically, things are not happening naturally, you see, even though it appears to be natural, but there is always a requirement for a conscious controller for any specific effect to produce, right? Just like milk doesn't come from the bull, it only comes from the cow, right? Of course, if the milk is coming from the bull, then something is wrong with the bull, right? You only expect milk from the cow, right? So in this way, see, even though things may be happening automatically or apparently no conscious controller is there, but that is not true. So there is always a conscious controller, and there is always someone behind the scenes, whether you see it or not, and that's how the creation is happening. So in this way, if you see the 50th verse, after describing the creation of 24 elements, the 50th verse, it says that when all the elements were unmixed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of creation, along with time, work, and the qualities of modes of nature, entered into the universe with the total material energy in 7 divisions. You see, after creating the 24 elements, it doesn't mean that, okay, now 24 elements are created, now the universe is there. No, it doesn't work like that. So after creating after creating the 24 elements, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Paramatma has entered into the creation so that he combines these elements and puts together creation. And that is why there is a description of Virat Purusha, of how Virat Purusha is putting together all these 24 elements together so that there can be creation happening. Because creation doesn't happen just by creating 24 elements. Someone has to be there, putting them together in an intelligent way. Because for every cause, right, there are 2 types of cause. There is material cause and there is efficient cause. Material cause basically means who is providing the raw materials, and the efficient cause means who is creating something using those raw materials. Means there is a requirement for an intelligent person who knows how to put things together and make the creation. So that is where the Lord is very much involved in the process of creation throughout. So this understanding that everything is happening automatically, everything is happening naturally, there is no need for God, there is no need for any conscious controller, cow is giving milk, iron is influencing magnets. These arguments are very shallow arguments, because these arguments are atheistic arguments which basically tries to deny the existence of the role of God in the creation. But however, that is not how things work, because as mentioned before, there has to be a conscious controller for everything. Without a conscious controller, someone who is having intelligence to put things together, the creation doesn't happen automatically like that. So that is where the description of Paramatma comes into picture, because, Lord in the form of, different Vishnu forms like Karanodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, they are actively involved in the process of creation and, happening the creation to be, possible, right? So that is why, this description of Virat Purusha is mentioned in Bhagavatam. See, every section of Bhagavatam, we must understand that it is actually a natural commentary on Brahma Sutras. Every chapter in Bhagavatam, we can connect to a certain section in Brahma Sutras. And especially this 26th chapter is actually commentary or connection, is actually connected to the Brahma Sutra, chapter number 2 and section number 2. Because that is where Vyasadeva is actually trying to refute the atheistic Sankhya philosophy. And that is why this chapter 26 is more of an elaboration of defeating the atheistic Sankhya philosophy. Because otherwise, every section in Bhagavatam has a specific purpose, has a specific context. It is not just a repetition, because if you don't really understand the context, we may just think that, oh, this section of Bhagavatam is just a repetition of what we already discussed. No, it's not a repetition. If you really understand a little, go deeper, actually every chapter in Bhagavatam has a specific purpose, especially the 26th chapter. The main purpose of the chapter 26 is not only trying to explain the creation, but also the refutation of atheistic Sankhya philosophy. We may not see it exactly, but if you try to dive a little bit deeper, then these things will become very obvious. So that is how we must understand the verses 54 to 61. It is not just a description of Virat Purusha. Yes, the description of Virat Purusha is there, but along with description of Virat Purusha, actually Vyasadeva is actually refuting the atheistic Sankhya philosophy, where it is saying that the role of God is very minimal, or the role of God is not there in creation, or everything is happening automatically. So as long as we understand this part, then we understand the purpose of these verses. Why is Vyasadeva or why is Bhagavatam talking about these verses, and what is the context of these verses? So I thought of discussing all these things, and I know that the verse is just talking about the hunger and thirst and oceans, but I want to put all these verses in context, so we know that why is description of Virat Purusha is coming after discussing about the 24 elements. Okay, that's it. Anybody has any questions? Yeah, Archita Prabhu. Yeah. So, it's a little bit difficult to put the timeline on these things, right? When did Kapila present his philosophy, and then when did atheistic Kapila come into picture? But from what we understand is that we only have two sources of Sankhya, two references for Sankhya currently available. So one reference to Sankhya which is currently available is Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And the second Sankhya philosophy, the atheistic Sankhya philosophy which is available is Sankhya Karika. So this Sankhya Karika was actually, if you look at the exact timeline, so this Sankhya Karika was actually translated from Chinese into Indian languages in 4th century. That's the timeline. So I mean, this was existing before 4th century, because before 4th century itself this knowledge was lost. But somehow, because Chinese, they translated there, so we brought it back. So that means this is even before 4th century. Yeah, that's for the timeline for this. And after that, what happens is that the reason why this atheistic Sankhya flourished is because of Gaudapadacharya. Gaudapadacharya is coming in the line of Shankaracharya, or he's actually a little bit even before Shankaracharya. But he was one of the famous commenter on Vedantas, and he made the Sankhyakarika more famous because he was a very popular personality, Gaudapadacharya. And after Gaudapadacharya gave the commentary, and and Vachaspati Mishra gave the commentary, who are the very famous commentators on Vedas, that became even more popular. But to put an exact timeline, when even Sankhyakarika was written, I mean, there is no mention of, there's no proper knowledge.
That's clear, but if we're going to present that Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam, and in that Bhagavatam he's refuting an existing philosophy, now we have to have a clear timeline in our mind.
That is true.
In other words, we're saying that Swayambhuva Manu brought his daughter to marry Kapila Kardamuni, and through them Kapila Deva appeared.
Yes.
And then he presented this Sankhya. So what you're actually saying is the atheistic Sankhya predated.
That is true. It has to be.
Yeah, but then we have to be able to present that in a very, very clear and thorough way. Otherwise, nobody's going to accept it.
Correct.
That Vyasadeva is writing his Bhagavatam, and in there he's refuting an existing Sankhya philosophy.
Yes, that means
that apparently our Sankhya didn't come till afterwards. If you look at the timeline, Swayambhuva Manu.
Okay.
What is his relation to Narada? Narada existed way before that. What is his relation to Vyas? My point is, if we're going to make historical statements, it has to be very, very clear. Otherwise, nobody's going to accept it.
Got it. Yeah, sure. I will look into it more.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. Sachidanaya Prabhu.
I have some. I try to understand. Maybe you can explain me better this about in regards to the creation of the universe.
Yes.
When you say the Purushas, in the atheistic or Sankhya atheistic, is the Purusha is not directly involved, and then in the theistic,
correct,
it is involved.
It is more involved.
Just
yes.
to clarify that, tell me if I'm correct. That is, in the theistic way, it's almost like a Chintya Veda Veda, because it is included in the sense that there's actually one verse that mentions that Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Suryate Balakriya Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. In other words, that it appears that he's not directly involved. It works through his energies. So in that sense, it might appear that he's not, but he's actually through his energies working.
Yeah, that is why we have, Lord having Paramatma feature. It is not Krishna directly involved in the creation. Krishna directly does not involve in creation. But he involves in the creation through his Paramatma feature, in the form of Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshidrakasha Vishnu. So, in one sense you can say God is not directly involved, but at the same time you can say he's involved in the form of Paramatma feature. That is where the understanding the Paramatma feature becomes more important. Because it's a Paramatma feature which is directly involved in the process of creation, not Bhagavan feature. Bhagavan feature is exclusively meant for Vaikuntha. It's not directly involved in the process of creation.
I have another question.
Yeah.
The other question is about curable and incurable diseases.
Yeah.
So once the curable diseases, sometimes when the gross senses, organs are in trouble, it may appear that there's some medicine or something to cure. Okay. But in the incurable, what about the mind, which is more subtle? Some people, sometimes a lot of people have some troubles from prarabdha, you say prarabdha, previous
Correct.
lives.
That is true.
So then, what will be the, how can I put this question? Sometimes we say that the Maha Mantra is the medicine to cure this.
Yeah.
What will be?
It is curable. It is curable. That is exactly the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. The goal of Ashtanga Yoga, initially the Ashtanga Yoga focuses mostly on the physical body, but later on it moves into the subtle. That is why, even Patanjali says that, the cleansing the chitta is the goal of yoga. So that is where we cleanse our consciousness. That is a process. Āyur-vedic treatment is mostly for the physical body, not for chitta. Chitta is only the scope of yoga, or the Ashtanga yoga or Bhakti yoga. Only they have the capacity to cleanse the consciousness. Because physical body is gross. Fixing the gross body is much easier. But fixing the subtle elements, because chitta is subtle, right? Consciousness is subtle. So that's much more powerful and much more difficult. And that's a job of yoga, to fix it, to fix those things, or to purify the consciousness. That doesn't come under the domain of Ayurveda. That comes under the domain of Ashtanga yoga or Bhakti yoga.
Prabhu, now in the question that Archita was asking you about the origin,
Yeah.
I was just thinking that in the 14th chapter, 11th chapter of the 11th canto, 11:14, the conversations of Uddhava and Krishna.
Yeah.
So Uddhava is asking Krishna that there are many views, many philosophies and theories. So even that, I mean, at that time, in that conversation, they were already there. You can name any philosophy. So it appears that it's always been existing.
It's always been existing. The reason is because when Krishna says that, that what you said, the statement, that, different, people, present the same thing in a different way. The reason is because, whether the speaker is focusing on bhakti, or is the speaker focusing on jnana, or the speaker focusing on karma.
Right.
Because when a speaker is focusing on jnana, he tends to combine things. He tries to say that everything is one. There's a tendency to combine things. But when a speaker is intending to be focusing on bhakti, then, he will try to create more and more categories. That's how you see. Even in Bhagavatam also, like, in some section you will see 24 elements, some sections you'll see 28 elements, some section you'll see 20 elements. The reason is because what is the chapter talking about? Is the chapter about bhakti, or more of a jnana dominated, or more of a karma dominated? Accordingly, you are allowed to combine and, these things. That is okay. That is acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because someone is telling 26 elements doesn't mean that he's wrong. He has his own reasons why he's doing it like that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Nirantar Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.